I was reflecting this morning on the word magical, and um, it's a word I do sometimes use to describe this. And I was curious how the word is defined in a dictionary, and I just looked it up actually a second ago, and it says beautiful or delightful in such a way as to seem removed from everyday life. Magical. And it's kind of perfect because what I wanted to talk about today and explore with you is how we have this tendency, right, to think of it in the ways it's being defined here, which is, well, I've got my normal everyday life, and, it's my normal everyday life. What's the big whoop? I mean, here I am, this human being living in a world and have all these things that I'm doing and relationships that I have and the stuff of the world. It's my normal everyday life. And probably, at least maybe some of the time, maybe a lot of the time, we have this sense like, well, we wouldn't necessarily describe it as magical. And then there can come along those moments that something about them seemed, as the definition says, somehow removed from our everyday life, in a sense of something extra special beyond our normal everyday life. And then we think of that as the magical, right? Something remarkable seems to happen, inexplicable, particularly astonishing, or, maybe really like magical in the sense of otherworldly, other dimensional. Um, if suddenly some being were to appear out of thin air in your living room, you'd probably say, wow, that was pretty magical, right? That would seem to be removed from normal everyday life, right? Um, but here's a funny thing, and what I would say is sort of wrong about the definition in the sense of how I like to speak about it and how I do speak about it, is that everything is magical. There's no, in one sense, all there is our normal everyday life, but the way we think about it often and hold it is in, without often realizing it, is in this sort of diminishing sense, as it's just my normal life, or it's just another day and another moment doing the same thing that I do, more or less most days. Um, and it's really, it can certainly seem that way, but there's a way to look again as we do together, on these Sundays, and look and see how every moment is the inexplicable magic appearing. The very appearance of the moment, what we call the moment, like the only one you can ever look at, in fact, which is the one that's here right now appearing, is the magic, isn't it? I mean, what's the actual, see, this is how we don't typically, I'm bringing this up because I don't think we typically are thinking about it in this way. We kind of have this notion that this is something about this is just normal everyday life. And then there's the magical stuff, like if someone suddenly were to appear in my living room out of thin air. But if somebody you quote unquote knew or didn't know opened your front door and walked into your living room, how would that be any less magical? Do you see? Everything is coming out of thin air, isn't it? I just like feel that for a moment. I mean, everything is a complete fucking miracle. as I was thinking about the word magical and how much I love that word and how much it captures something of this ineffable reality, its magical nature. I was remembering how my friend Peter Brown, and quite a few conversations I had with him, just one-on-one, where I would be asking this question because it was just, I didn't really need a resolution to it, but it was just such a curiosity of mine of like, wow, here's this reality that when we look, we can see, as I often remind us, that it's here for no time because its arrival is its departure, right? Because it's here for no time. It's alive, right? So it's never actually here, you see, because it's constantly transforming. And I would say to Peter, like, there's nothing here in that sense. Like it's never here. It's unborn, as they say in the Zen Buddhist tradition. It never comes into form. And I remember these conversations. I was like, but here's the whole world of form and appearance. It's like, how is that possible? Like, it's not here, but here it is. And he would say again and again to me, well, it's magic. It's pure magic. And it's the best explanation. It's the only explanation. Because you see, any explanation we might be able to conjure up, whether it's a metaphysical one or a scientific one or philosophical one, it always begs the question, well, if you say something led up to this moment, you can, oh, I can explain how the moment is here, like, really? How? I mean, even if you talk about the genesis of the moment, the beginning of the moment, well, if we talk about the beginning of creation, we go back to the Big Bang, which, scientists would say somehow like out of nothing was this explosion and then life materialized and the beginnings of what we think of as life, this protoplasmic, and then eventually somehow magically, I mean, think about it. Like, how do we get from the Big Bang to Shakespeare exactly? I mean, if that's not magic, I don't know what is. But it's really like a non-explanation that somehow, well, there was nothing and then there was something. But that, of course, requires that we go back in time to try to figure out how what's appearing right now that you would call this instant. Like, it's impossible to go back in time to find the beginning of this moment. So the appearance of this moment is magical, inexplicable. So I looked up the definition of appear. It's really cool. I was like, the word was defined in the dictionary as to come into sight, to become visible or noticeable. Like, the moment becomes noticeable. In the instant, it becomes noticeable. It's not like it's on the way to becoming noticeable and then eventually becomes noticeable. I mean, we only know the noticeable, right? We only know the magic of this appearance, this instant, this immediacy. Just boom, it's just here. And the definition goes on. It says to come into sight, become visible or noticeable, this is to appear, typically without visible agent or apparent cause. It just appears. It's pure magic, isn't it? It's pure. Can you feel the magic of it? The inexplicable nature of everything, of each, however you might be describing the moment as thought, pure magic. It comes into existence. It is here suddenly, just appearing out of thin air. Thought. Where does it come from? Oh, the brain activity? What kind of an explanation is that? It's no explanation, right? Okay, well, it always begs the question, well, brain activity? Where did the neurons, how did they come into existence to create thought? You see, it's pure magic. Or the arising of sensation, sight, sound, touch, the sense of the body. All of it is appearance. It's coming into view, instantaneously comes into view. It appears. And it is no less magical than somebody apparating in your living room. than the extraterrestrials suddenly making an appearance on Earth and announcing their presence to humankind. This moment is no less magical than that. This is the miracle. Everything is the miracle, the magical display, the magical appearance of reality. Nothing is anything but that magical display. Each thought, each feeling, each sensation, each circumstance, each relationship, each instant of wondering, each memory, each visual image that appears, each sound that appears. You see, our attention, and this is how we create the hierarchy of all the appearances, our attention tends to orient to how it is appearing and what we think about that. How special we think it is or not special, how important we think it is, how not important, how beneficial we think it is, how non-beneficial we think it is, how much of a threat it might be or not a threat. Do we like it? Do we not like it? Is it higher? Is it lower? Is it better? Is it worse? Right? That's the hierarchy of how we're describing what's appearing. It's like, you're watching the movie. I like this character. I don't like this character. I like this story plot. This one, not so much. This one inspires me. This one frightens me. Our attention is on the content of the appearance, how we're interpreting it. And that's fine. But we have a tendency to miss the all-pervading magic of all of it because the interpreting aspect of this magic show also, along with its interpreting function, creates this seeming hierarchy of the different appearances. Like, this is different from that. And not only is this appearance different from that appearance, but this one is higher up in the hierarchy, right? It's better. It's more enlightened or more magical. But you see, what I'm suggesting is that it's all equally magical. It's like the light of reality. Like if you're sitting in the movie theater and you're watching the movie and all this stuff's happening on the screen. I've used this metaphor before. I love it. And it's like, well, you have your preferences of these characters and these storylines and plot lines versus the other storylines and plot lines. That's seems to be part of what's going on, those preferences and that kind of sense of hierarchy of what's appearing. But we're kind of like, when we come together like this, we're sort of, metaphorically speaking, turning around and looking at the light, the projector, the magical projector of God, of reality, whatever you want to call it. That is, again, hold all of this lightly because I can't say how this is happening or what it's really like, but that sense of like the moment being projected into existence, being generated, created right in real time, boom, here it is. And so we're focusing on and familiarizing and coming to appreciate, wow, the real miracle is that there even is a projector going, that there is a light show, if you will, that's happening right now, the magical appearance, right? And of course, this is where the great freedom lies, in discovering that everything is the magical appearance. I mean, then you're home free. You're always home and you're always free, home free. You're always home in and as the magical display. You are the magic show. Everything about you, your body, your mind, your personality, all of it, the appearance, right? Inexplicable appearance, pure magic. And so, how we tend to think as humans, whether just not necessarily in any spiritual sense, explicitly spiritual seeking sense, we're just looking for a better life, better, more well-being, more happiness, like pretty much every human is, right? And so then we're trying to secure particular appearances and hold on to those, the good moments, the fun, joyful moments and circumstances, and have as few of the ones that we don't like as possible. Like that's part of what we do, sort of cultivating and curating the life that we want, the appearances that we think are the ones that we'll enjoy, right? Um, that's just universally, right? This is what all humans are doing. It's why they do everything they do, because we believe it's going to bring about what we want, which is a sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. And none of that even has to touch something like spirituality and non-duality. It's the same basic drive, it would seem, that we have as humans, right? To secure well-being, to find it. And and then in a more explicitly spiritual kind of context, that gets framed as, well, what I want is enlightenment or freedom, right? Oneness, awakening. And then we tend to tie those things that we're looking for, whether we label them in those more spiritual kind of terms, if you will, or the more just human terms. It's the same thing to me in a lot of ways. And it's the search. And the search is always driven by the innocent misperception that is not already the case. And why do we imagine it's not already the case? That this isn't already what we're looking for, you know, because of the hierarchy. If we knew that everything was the magic show, everything was this magical display, this appearing of the inexplicable creative force of life, which of course obviously is. But if we really got that, well, then we would see that we're home free right now. We're, um, but this is it. And this is it. And this is it. And this is it. Of course, it's ever changing. So it's not like this is it. And then that's some kind of static, like, oh, I got this, no, because that'll change instantly into the next appearance, because it's an appearing, it's dynamic. It's not an appearance that's got some static, fixed, enduring nature to it, as we know. It's a much more verb than a noun. It's unfolding constantly. But just as you're sitting here, just feel, just for a few moments, just appreciate how every appearance is the miracle, is the magical display. And in that sense, there's no hierarchy of magic. It's all magic. Every person, place, and thing, every circumstance, every situation, every momentary perception, every experience is, in that instant, that is reality's display, isn't it? The appearance of divinity in all the different ways, shapes, and forms it can tend to appear as, which is nothing but each appearance is unique, one pixel from the next pixel from the next pixel in this display. But all of it is the magical display. You're like cruising around in the field of your experience, consciousness moving around, seemingly encountering this, that, and the other thing, right? But just see how everything consciousness lands upon, everything that comes into view, we could say that suddenly there's that focus of like, oh, there's this. Well, there's the appearance. And then consciousness finds another appearance, another experience. There's the appearance. And then it finds another one. Oh, the appearance. You see how it's all the appearance? It's all the view of reality. Amazing, huh?